Also, welcome to the show. Today, I am excited to sit down with Khris Hamlin. He's the Vice President of Asset Protection for RILA, which is the Retail Industry Leaders Association. And I was fortunate enough to be introduced to Khris from another dear friend, and he has over 27 years of experience in retail sales, operations, and management. And he brings just a powerful mix of expertise, leadership, background, and his world of retail security. And I just thought he had such an interesting background because both of us are criminal justice majors, which some people don't know that about me. They definitely know about him, but his background in psychology too, which I thought was really interesting, or his education in it. And he's known for his integrity, his leadership, his firm, but fair leadership and his track record in building teams. So not only is he preventing loss, but he's driving cultures of accountability. And just really excited to have you here, Khris. I've interviewed a lot of retail leaders, and it's a passionate project of mine. And so just welcome to the show. Thanks for taking the time out to be here.
Yeah, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited for this chat. It's always fun getting in that hot seat when the tables are turned. So I'm excited for this.
Super. So just tell me, Khris, a little bit about your background, like where you're from, just a little bit
Yeah.
about maybe even your growing up and how you landed and what you landed in.
So I'll put it like this. First off, I'm a military brat. So shout out to all those that have had to endure traveling and moving and picking up and friends and family and all that type of stuff. But my father was in the Air Force. My mom worked in federal law enforcement. And
Wow.
so nothing unique or weird about us, but very interesting dinner table conversations, you could say, which those conversations didn't happen, if you know what I'm talking about. But yeah, so my father, like I said, in the Air Force, we travel quite a bit internationally and then domestically until I finally said I'm ready to spread my wings and start my own journey together. So got a chance to be, well, first off, I have the privilege of being born outside of the country. So I have dual citizenship. So that's a fun fact about Khris Hamlin.
Yeah.
And then
You born.
I was born in Honduras. So
Oh,
born in
wow.
Honduras, yeah. So have dual citizenship, and then have lived in multiple places across the U.S. With my parents, and then of course professionally have lived across the U.S. in many different places as well too.
I love that. So what did that do just as for your like leadership style? The fact that you were born elsewhere, I feel like that brings a lot of openness to diversity, as I was someone that was born outside the country
Yeah,
too, parents too.
yeah. So it's unique because everybody and we say we don't do it, we say we won't do it, but everybody, as soon as they see you or start to interact with you, they get an idea. They're like, oh, you're from here, or you grew up here, or you grew up like this. And so when I tell them, or when people learn that I have dual citizenship, they learn that I wasn't born in the United States, or they start to learn about all the places I've lived at. And probably over the time that we've talked, we'll be talking here today, you'll hear different pieces of different accents come out. And so people are like, I can't put my finger on where you're actually from. And it does bring for a very different type of outlook when it comes to diversity of teams, diversity of mindsets, and being inclusive across the board. So,
I
yeah.
love that. So did you find that how that create just openness for you? And I know a lot of your background too is just understanding people, right? And so how did that influence you?
I'll tell you, it one of the biggest pivot points within my life was, I'd been in a vice president role for a couple of years, and while I was in that space or in that role, I really I sat back and I had one of those reflective moments where I started to think about, I wanted to grow my programs. I wanted to do things a little bit differently, but I said I had to change my mindset up some. And the biggest piece for me on changing my mindset up was going back to that diversity piece. It was a key thing for me. And it was funny because I had seen this growing up, but
Yeah.
I didn't connect it until this pivot point within my career where I started to really think about, you have different members of your team
Yeah.
for different reasons. And so like if you think about a football team or a basketball team, not everybody can play center, and not everybody can be the quarterback.
Yep.
You have to have different, you got to have a fullback, you got to have, a running back, you got to have all these different positions that will take your team and drive you forward. And so, one piece, and I go back to this from a diversity standpoint, I had to say, I can't be the smartest person on the team. I just got to be able to call some plays and allow my team members to execute and run those plays. But the second piece of that was I can't look for that quarterback in every person I bring on my team. I have to look for a person that can be sound with numbers that can get me ahead in that category. This person that has the smarts, the street smarts to be able to be able to connect with individuals as we're looking at investigations from this perspective, or this person over here that can lead things from a corporate level. And so, that pivot point really kind of accelerated my growth as a leader in that moment because I stopped looking for that atypical personality and started to look for the diversity of my team that's going to get us to the next level.
I think that's such a powerful piece when I work with organizations and different leaders, right? A lot of times there's also frustration built when someone's not performing at a certain level or doesn't do something a certain way, not good with detail maybe, but we also don't need everyone to be the same way, right? It's like this symphony. We have to kind of create this orchestra.
Yes.
That's wonderful. And so is there I don't want to say there's a standard because there's not, but while you're working with your teams, do you look out for certain things every time there's a shift? And how do you do that?
I'll tell you, that pivot point in my career taught me to look at things from a reverse perspective. So stop looking for the person that's going to go into the role, but look at the skill sets that you need to be able to drive forward most effectively for your business. And so like when you start to develop and kind of look at, this is the skills that I need. This is the work that we need to get accomplished. And this is our goal. This is where that goal line is at the moment. When you start to look at that, then you start to build a profile of that person that can take it to the next place. And so instead of trying to put that profile in a person, you build a profile and then find the person that aligns to that profile that's going to take your business to the next level.
That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And what advice would you give to just any professional that is maybe struggling as there's a lot of reorganizations happening, a lot of changes, right? How do they do that? What's their first step in doing that if they don't have experience doing it as well as you've done it?
My first step was understanding where my true goalpost was. And so like that's that reality check and it's funny because as a leader, you'll pitch your goalpost here.
Yeah.
But your organization might have a different place where the goalpost is. And so, and until you become an entrepreneur, you're working for somebody. So you need to see where their goalpost is and how do you align to that place. And that might take some, reflective moments for yourself because where the company wants to go might not be the same place where you want to go. But in order for you to be successful with your team and to continue to thrive as a leader working for that company, you got to align to where the goalpost is. And there might be some times where you look at where the company's trying to get to, and it might be that there's a couple journey points along the way that you need to get yourself to or get your team to be able to get to that place too. And that's how you start to build that structure. And then once that structure is in play, now you take that reverse engineering piece and kind of look at those tools, those skill sets, those opportunities that you need to have within your team that's going to align to getting you on that roadmap to that end destination.
Wonderful. Yeah. So that's a simple strategy for people to start, though it's easier said than done, right?
Yeah. Yes. Look, I lost my hair in the journey. So.
Oh man, whereas you, I think things continue to change. That's great. That's great. Well, so for you, you make me think about, as you're saying, the goalpost is different. One of the things I feel personally is very important is some of my clients too, when I'm coaching them, is trying to get them to understand what their own values are as well. I know mine, and communicating them to each one of my, whoever it is, right, that I'm working with, and then helping them understand how that aligns with the values of the organization. So for you, I just love to know, like, what are some of your top values that come like to mind, and then how do you do that? Is that something that you do with your people as you're building?
Yeah, I think that you mentioned it at the beginning there. One of the things that I really hang my hat on is building a team. Hands down, I look at myself as that master orchestra leader, that conductor. Like I can build a team because like I said at the beginning, I'm not looking for every person to play the trumpet. I'm looking for every musical instrument that's going to be an accompaniment to this master plan that we're going to pull together. And so building a team is by far, one of my top values that I bring to any organization or to any situation that I'm approaching. Outside of that is that level of integrity. I'm going to keep the company's interests at top of mind and top of heart in everything that I do. But most importantly to that, it's not always about the integrity that you have to your employer. It's also the integrity that you have to your team. And so as a leader, I pride myself in having the highest level of integrity for my team on how I'm going to grow them, how I'm going to develop them, how I'm going to advocate for them, and how I'm going to be I'm their cheerleader.
Yeah.
I might, they might work on my team, and I might lead them as their leader. But at the end of the day, we're both colleagues in this race of getting the job done. And so, I'm in that space to be able to promote, advocate, support, coach, and develop them as they continue to grow as well. And so, if I had to take many different things that I value in myself, those are the two top values that I hang my hat on every day, is building a team and the level of integrity that I have to my organization and to my team.
It's wonderful. That's wonderful. And I think it's important, right? The leaders are so crystal clear about what they are, immediately communicating
Yeah.
that. So tell me a little bit about, usually from those, right? When we have values or we have experiences, we love to develop a team. It usually comes from either learning it the hard way because we weren't developed ourselves and wanting to do that. But where did that
Yeah.
come from? Where that passion was,
It's
you can
funny.
let us know.
I just started laughing because it always comes from, as you are learning the skill sets of being a good leader, you find those skill sets that you're like, I never want to be like that.
Yes, exactly. Exactly.
And so it's like making the perfect cup of coffee. You'll start off and you're like, "Ooh, that was too much cream, and that was too much sugar, or that coffee is too weak." And so it's so interesting along the way where, as you are being led by different leaders, you're
Yeah.
learning that is something that what I experience is something I never want to give to somebody else. I never want to put somebody else through that situation. Or if I could avoid some pitfalls for somebody, then how do what can I do to be able to insulate them and give them that learning experience that doesn't completely derail them, but it allows them to learn through the struggle. And so my leadership journey has been years of different nuggets and tidbits. I find myself as a master learner. So I'm looking at what my leaders are teaching me, but I'm also looking at other leaders and how they lead their teams. And I'm pulling bits and pieces from all of that to really combine and make this perfect cup of coffee that's known as Khris Hamlin. So
I love it. That's wonderful. That's wonderful. And that is such a great point, right? We had to pull a little bit from everything, but I definitely have heard more in my career that people are learning from the things that they were not provided and figuring out how to do that, right? And so I think
yeah.
that's it. Plus a little bit of personality, I think, comes into it where you just love to help people, and that's just innate.
Yep.
It's very clear that you do love people and you're very enthusiastic around the approach. Was there a time where where that was not, being a leader was not something you really wanted to do?
It's so interesting. It's so interesting you asked that question. So growing up, I was an introvert. And I was a person. We moved around quite a bit. You learn how not to have true friends, or building those friendly relationships and different things like that. And so there are those moments where I was nervous on having conversations with people, or nervous. I would run away from conflict and not want to be involved in conflict and things like that. And so, yes, there was a time, but I'll tell you, as you start to build and you start to interact with individuals and they see how you lead, and then you see them build confidence in you. Those are moments where it's like, okay, I can do this. And so now and for me, it turned me from being that person that was shy to speak, a person that some might not know, but a person that was diagnosed with a speech impediment, and was nervous about speaking in public with people,
What?
and different things like that, to a person that now is like, let's go. Let's get out there. Let's figure out this challenge together. And if we fail together, we fail together, and we learn how to overcome that.
Wow. And so even just talking about that with a speech impediment, right? Like
Yeah.
something like that. What did you do, or who did you have that mentored you or helped you to help build how did you build your confidence out of that? Because that's a huge one that knocks people off.
Yeah, it goes back to it goes back to my dad. My dad was probably my well, not probably, he was like my number one cheerleader.
Yeah.
That was my biggest advocate, and also my biggest supporter, and person that led me with confidence. And so the one thing that my dad and even my mom, but both of them instilled in me is that you can do it. Like you, all you have to do is put your mind to it. You put your mind to it and you focus in on it, you can get this done, and nothing should ever hold you back from having that commitment that you can get it done. And so, I value what they put into my sister and I, and because of that training and because of that push and that focus that they instill in us, that's what turned me into being attracted to wanting to be a leader. I never knew I could be a leader,
Yeah.
and then organically fell into a leadership position and have thrived as a leader.
So that's a pretty incredible. I feel like this is so funny. It's like when we first met, I'm going, okay, now I know why we have so much in common because I moved around a lot. I was very shy, painfully shy. Now you can't get me to like not
Yes.
speak, right? And so those come with just so many challenges because I think that that's really inspiring for people who may be introverted. I mean, I still qualify as an ambivert. I'm still ambivert. I
Yes.
can't be out there all the time.
Right. Yes.
What advice would you give to someone who maybe doesn't have the support, right? Because I had parents, the same thing. I still believe I could do anything.
Yep.
But what would you give them as advice if they're just struggling? They're like, I can't do that, but I want to lead. Like I have the passion to do it.
Yeah. You have to then, if you don't have that level of support, you have. I always, my mentality, I call it. I never would find a mentor. I
Mm,
adopted mentors. And so another reversism that I approach that piece, it was finding individuals that you aspire to be like. Like, it's like, wow, that person, I like the way that they move. I like the way that they lead. I like the way they communicate. And so now you find ways to get into that person's circle. How do you get those conversations with that person? How do you have some check-ins with them? How do you ask them for advice? How do you do these things where they feel like, wow, I'm pouring into you. They don't know it, but they just signed that adoption paperwork because you just adopted them as a mentor. And
oh,
when you're able to build that relationship, there's mentors of mine today that were like, wow, whenever I tell people that I don't find mentors, I adopt mentors and I go through this, my mentors are like, yep, he did that to me. That's exactly what he did. He called me and asked me for advice on one topic 20 years ago. And here we are 20 years later. And there's so many milestones we've accomplished together. And so like that's what I would say is if you don't feel like you have that support, find somebody that you think is doing it well and figure out how to get into their circle so that you can get connected with them and grow with them as they're growing in their leadership style as well.
that's amazing. And that is so important, right? I think a lot of times it's tough to find them, but I love the mentality of, adopting them, finding them, asking, because
Yeah.
I think just human nature and maybe from your psychology background, right? Most of us think that people, oh, nobody wants to help me. They don't have time for me, right? But in the end, like how much do you love to pour into people? If people ask me for help, I love to help. It's my favorite thing to do, right? And
That,
so most people want to.
Yep. If you think about it, that I always tell people that first interaction with that person, you should ask them for their advice. Who doesn't like to give their own advice? like that's psychology 101 is that every person loves to talk about themselves and loves to give their own advice. And so if you can get a person in the mindset to think that every time you're reaching out, you're looking to pick their brain or get their advice, I guarantee you're going to learn some lessons from them along the way. And before you know it, you've adopted them as a mentor.
So true. That's wonderful. That's such a great spin on it. Adopting a mentor. I really love that. It's like probably a coined term that people know.
Yes, 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 yes.
And you spoke about mindset. So, almost 3 decades in the industry, right? And also with the security side, right? I feel like that comes with my very little bit of experience, criminal justice background. That sometimes comes with cynicism, which I had a lot of for very early in my career, and I had to get out of that. And also with just constant change. How the heck do you stay so positive, so sharp, so enthusiastic? Is that just natural, or you have to train yourself? Because I train people on mindset. I think it's
Yeah.
so important.
Yeah, you have to train yourself. This, especially in this industry, in the security side of the industry, there are. You think about 90% of your job is dealing with issues. You are. The seats I've sat in where I've led retailers total risk programs, where I've led their asset protection total teams, where I've led their investigations total teams. When you're dealing with these concerns, 90% of the calls that you get are all going to be related to problems. I used to tell my spouse, I told her all the time, I said, if that phone rings, whenever that phone rings, especially if it's after 5 p.m., it is a problem. And depending upon what level I am within the company, if it's ringing after 5, it's a big problem because it's made it to my level at that point now. And so, you have to condition yourself mentally to be able to say, how much of the problem can I take on? And then how much do I need to be able to disconnect away from? Because if you allow all of that to weigh on your shoulders, it's going to put you into a spiral that you'll never be able to get out of. And I got to tell you, Herday, I have, I've been with some of the employers I've been with. We've walked through, civil unrest events. We've walked through fatalities in our stores. We've walked through, serious incidents or catastrophic accidents in our buildings. We've walked through all of these events, but it's about how do you mentally condition yourself to be able to say work is work. There has to be a point where you have to disconnect away from work. And it's not taking the emotion out of it. It's just allowing yourself to emotionally disconnect from what's secular from you, from what's personal to you, and being able to separate those two. And it's not easy. It sounds easy for me talking through it. It's not easy. And I also have to just flag, it is okay to tell somebody that you're not okay and that you need help. Like it's okay to do that. I've done it multiple times, and there's multiple times where I've had to reach out for professional help, where it would be counseling or therapy help to be able to deal with some of the things that I've faced within my roles.
Thank you for saying that, because that is it's funny. I just posted something about that this morning, that some of the most successful leaders, right? They seek that out, whether it's your personal board of directors, whether it's therapy, whatever it is. But we're humans, and especially when we're dealing with so many problems, I find that it's different with, there's some very high level leaders that are very alone, right? You have families you got to take care of, and you're not going to come down and break down, but there's got to be someone you could talk to, right? To handle that. So thank you for sharing that. I think that's really, really, really important. And it's being like less, I feel like, stigmatized, which is really great. I feel like people are talking about it more, which is awesome. And so that, and just working in, I trained a lot of retail leaders, and the ones I had in loss prevention, right? I know they were always struggling and challenging with, like, I'm dealing with the worst of humanity, right? And it's like, well, it's mindset, right? It's like, okay, well, let's try to shift and compartmentalize when we can. But also, people are people, and usually when you dig in, right, they're having their own challenges, is why they're acting out the way that they are. And they're sometimes not even bad people. They're just doing bad things because they have no one to talk to, right? No support.
It's so easy. It's so easy to get tripped up and to go down a place that puts you in a very mentally unstable place, dealing with some of these issues. So that is so important. And anybody that's working on my teams know that I will advocate to the day is long for it, to make sure that, mental health and mental stability is something that's key for the teams.
And how do you communicate that, Khris? Like how do you share that with the team?
Yeah. So it's interesting. Every one of my employers, I've been fortunate enough, every one of the employees I've worked for has had some type of EAP program, some type of mental health, either mental health resources or alliances or tools or things that were available for the teams. And this is where it could be uncomfortable as a leader to have to sit down with somebody and say, hey, you've just gone through some traumatic situations. Why don't you take a moment and just decompress? Why don't you take a moment? Here's some resources. You don't have to tell me you took them up, but I'm just going to offer some to you. And if you take them up, hey, that's on you. But it requires, as a leader, to go to that uncomfortable place.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be a benefit to your team. And what I'll tell you is the teams that I've had the privilege of offering or suggesting, those team members, they come back to you and they'll pull you to the side. Many of them have one-on-one just thanked me. I've even had family members thank me for recognizing concerns and getting somebody some help, or getting them some resources to get help.
Yeah, that's so powerful, because now you're making me think more, right? How so many people, right? If we could be those observers, if we could put the psychology piece in, and we could observe from a perspective of, maybe this person at work is acting out or angry with someone else because something else is going on deeper, we can literally have saved them or family. You never know, right? Because
Never know.
they're at work more than they are anywhere else.
Absolutely. We spend 85% of our time with our coworkers and at work or thinking about work or doing something work related. But you think about these events, events, and here we go down the psychological path, but
Yeah.
events that happen, when you look at those center influences of those events, they are typically closely tied to work related or traumatic events that people experience while they're dealing with work. And so, like, if you look at these events, if we are just able to get in front of situation, whatever that situation might be able to identify it and get in front of it and offer some resources. Think about, could that have stopped that next catastrophic event at a workplace or next catastrophic event that could have happened, in a public setting? If we just had that moment to just say, flag, let me offer something, let me make a suggestion, or let me make a mental note because there could be something here. And so, I mean, like you think about the cliche that we hear out there in America today. We hear that if you see something, say something.
Yeah.
Well, if this person is on your team, here's an opportunity for you to do something.
You're 1,000% right, right? It's like those, and there's people that are suffering in silence, and you see something, and it's like a lot of times too, right? I think there's studies around that too, where a lot of
Yeah,
people, everyone's standing around something, like someone's being a victim of something, and everyone's
so,
like, I was in a restaurant maybe 4 months back, and a guy passed out. Everyone else thought everyone was on the phone, and I'm like, no, no, I don't think so. And I went
let's
outside
do
and waited.
something.
Everyone
Yeah,
thought everyone was doing something, but nobody was.
let's do anything.
It's
Yep.
like, so there's that opportunity, right? Yeah, where you
Yeah.
can literally save someone, help them in such a tremendous way, and how loyal that person's going to be, right?
Yeah. There are team members, and anybody that's ever been on my team that sees this, they'll know who I'm talking. They'll know I'm talking about them. But there's team members to this day that I stay connected with, that I've known for 30 plus years of being in the industry. And there's team members that we've gone through traumatic situations together. But these individuals have become lifelong friends, like our families are friends to this point because of the fact that you took that moment to care.
That's so powerful. The impact, right? Now you talk about and being at work, and if you want to make an impact and help others, that's definitely the way to do it.
That's it.
So
Yeah.
speaking of like stress and leadership under pressure
Yeah.
a little bit, how do you balance that accountability with your team when you're building a team or just working with your team
Yeah.
with empathy and holding people accountable when they're all stressed out, and how do you calm them, right? That was something I was talking about today was, it's like the duck on the pond, right? You have to sometimes be super calm
Yeah.
up here, even though you're like, ah.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
How
Yes.
do you do that and then still and also keep people accountable when things
Yeah.
are rough or even doing those traumatic things, those challenging things,
Right.
right?
So I always go back to a saying that I heard early in my career in the retail industry, and it's we sell socks and underwear. Retail is all about selling socks and underwear, and nothing should be as detrimental to
Yeah,
that. Going back to the fact that we sell socks, we're dealing with socks and underwear here. That's
right.
this is not we're not finding world peace. We're not curing the cause for hunger. Like we sell socks and underwear. And so, I go back to the teams that I've led, and even in the most chaotic situation, I remind everybody that we protect socks and underwear. That's what we do. At the end of the day, we protect socks and underwear. So let's get it together. When panic has started or when chaos has started to kick in, let's go back to the core thing of what we do, and it's socks and underwear. And then how do we now take that perspective and lead at a place where we might be frantic as hell at the end of the day, but to the outer look, we are cool, calm, and collective, and we're going to get the job done. Because having that clear mind and be able to speak clearly and authentically to individuals, and to be able to lead them, taking the emotion out of it, that's how you get stuff done, especially when everybody else is running frantic. So, I think back every day about, when we were dealing with civil unrest. We had no idea. Like let's take a step back when we were dealing with COVID. We had no idea what we were dealing with. Like this was pure chaos and utter confusion. But this is a time where many asset protection leaders this is where we excel, because we were like, hey, we don't know what we're dealing with. We're dealing with something. We don't know what we're dealing with, but let's go back to the core value. We know that we need to protect socks and underwear, and we need to protect our team. And
Yeah.
let's figure out how do we protect our team? How do we drive these measures to keep everybody safe as possible? And then we'll let everybody else figure out all the other stuff, but we're going to navigate through this. And so, for me, that has been one of the core things for me. My team will tell you that there's not too many things that get me riled up now, about different things. I go back to my core of what we have to do. And so whatever the situation is, however it's delivered to us, we got to take the emotion out of it. We got to lead clearly through it. And ultimately, at the end of the day, there's many teams that are going to have to ride on our shoulders. And so we have to be that calm voice to be able to deliver at the end.
What would you, for someone on if your team or someone else has someone on a team that struggles with that? Because
Yeah.
I know I've watched leaders where they think they have it under control and they don't,
Yeah.
and everyone
Yeah.
else is fearing their jobs, all sorts of things, and it is a trickle down effect. So someone that you might have had before, or again, someone listening that's like, that's just not me. I don't know how to be calm. What
Yeah.
would you suggest to them to do?
Yeah. That you got to find a sounding board. This is where you find a person where you can get on the phone and be like, oh my God, it has hit the fan and knocked it over. It is bad. But this is where you let out all of your panic, in that conversation with that individual, your sounding board. And then but your sounding board has to make a commitment to you that after they allow you to spill all your panic,
Yep.
that they stop you.
Yep.
And they say, all right, let's go back to the core. How are you going to deliver this message to your team? How are you going to deliver this message to the public? How are you going to deliver this message to your organization so that now you can come out sounding calm and collective and being able to take the chaos out of the situation to be able to deliver what you have to deliver for the team. And so that sounding board is good, because there have been moments where I'm just like, I have no idea how we're going to get through this. But after I pull myself together, I'm able to deliver a clear vision to the team, and being able to deliver that authentically and clearly and concisely gets people behind you. And when people are behind you, then that's what takes the panic out of everything, and people are able to get the job done.
And that's powerful, right? It really is. Like it's I think a lot of times all those stressful things almost ask or require a quick fix. Do this now, and then
Yep.
there's more panic. And instead of responding, taking the time,
Take
calling
that
your
time.
mentor, or taking
Yeah.
a deep breath, or just like walking outside, getting out of the room,
Having
or
to
whatever's going on.
and that has been, even from my media training, when somebody asks you one of those questions, you're like, you know what? Let me take a pause for a second. Let me gather myself. Now let me respond.
I think there's like a clip of like Steve Jobs doing that, taking this
Yeah.
uncomfortably long pause, take
Yeah.
a sip of water. You're like,
On the pregnancy pause, you take that pause.
pause. I love it.
Yeah.
That's so
Yeah.
that's so true. That's so true.
Yeah.
So training yourself, right? And like you said, not all of this is going to come easy to everybody, but just making those little shifts over time, I think it
That is.
becomes habit.
It's about conditioning. That's that conditioning. Yeah, conditioning. Yep.
Yeah, there you go. I love it. I love it. And so with your background in psychology,
Yeah.
how does that impact your communication, your motivation, motivating your team, right? Or building trust in your team, or trying to get them to do things that they need to do and maybe they don't see the big vision. Do you
Yeah.
use psychology in it?
Always. Always.
Good. Thank you for admitting it. I knew it.
The cool thing about it is it just allows you to have a different perspective.
Hmm.
And so, like, as you're leading teams, it's super when you have elevated to certain levels of leadership. There's a time when mentally you might get confused in your title. And so you might get confused in that place where it's like, well, I said it, so it needs to be done this way. And unfortunately, a lot of people don't respond to that power position of leadership, or that authoritative style of leadership. They don't respond. And so that's where, for me, when you think about some of the psychology training and different tools and tactics that I've learned along my way, it allows me to be able to engage my team and allow us to go into maybe a think tank cycle, to where the ideas or I can have influence on ideas, but I allow my team to bring those ideas to the circle, and I allow us all to support those ideas where I might have influenced it, but I allow us all to support it. And when a person is able to take their idea from concept to practice, they're going to be more sold and more bought in to deliver on that idea. And so that's how, how I've been able to really get my teams to outperform other teams, to be able to be so committed to delivering on those goals is because I just use the sheer strategy of getting my teams, getting their ideas promoted and
Yeah.
with a little influence, but getting their ideas promoted to the direction that I need them to go in.
I love that. Yeah, that's powerful, right? And it is. It's like I think what I've seen with a lot of retail leaders, or I've done a lot of work with ShopRites and grocery, so
Ooh,
I've worked and see that a lot of times it is that helping them shift and realize that it's just you got to stop during the chaos, right? Because it's always
yes,
chaos. How do you
always.
stop, pause, and ask someone and get their ideas first before
Yep.
telling them what to do, which sometimes comes so easy because it's like I don't have time for this. I got to tell you what to do. And it's all, yeah.
Yes.
And it's like, oh, I got things checked off a list, and I actually just was coaching somebody the other day, just asking them, just ask their buy-in, like, well, how do they think it should be done, even though you know the answer. Just
Yeah.
what do they think about it? Do they like it? They don't like it?
That's it.
Bits of psychology for
It's,
sure.
it's when you empower them to think. When you empower them to think, and then you add a little bit of your influence, and
Yep.
then give them a moment to circle back to give you a recap of how things went, and then
That's
you allow more of your influence to go into the mix. Like that's how you get it done, and you teach them along the way.
exactly right. It's
Yep.
opportunities to coach them. Yeah, that's great. And then when you said empowering them too, I think that's a big one. But a lot of
Yeah.
times too, I see people. I got to check in with this person multiple times and ask them, is it, I got to check with my manager if it's okay. And it's like, when can you have some trust in them that they
Yep.
can do some things, let them make a mistake too if they need to, and then come back and coach them.
Yeah. Yes. Yes.
So what have you seen as been challenging? Because everything, right? Everything in the industry is changing. So much has changed since COVID. What are you seeing just even in the industry too for you? That's one of the biggest challenges that leaders need to be more focused on. And this could be just leadership in general, or it can be, your background.
I'd say one of the biggest things right now is for leaders that have been in the game as long as I have or longer, the workforce has drastically changed, drastically changed. And so the way we might have learned how to lead teams, you have to evolve as a leader. You have to evolve in your leadership style if you want to continue to have that impact, have the input and the impact on your team that's going to deliver at the end of the day. And so, we went through that moment after COVID where we had people that were quietly quitting.
Yes.
You have different, we are in a place now where, I was just sitting in a session a couple weeks ago and we were learning about how as you're looking at new members to join your team, it's not about looking at the most smartest, most efficient person. This public speaker actually said you should look for the laziest, smartest person to join your team because they're going to figure out a way to leverage all the technology and tools that are out there today to get the job done. And that person is going to be one of the sharpest members of your team because they're driving things in a much more efficient fashion. And so this is that evolution of the mindset shift of a leader on how do you evolve, continue to evolve as a leader as you're leading teams, and look at your team is dynamically going to change, and so you have to figure out where you meet your team at that change to be able to drive them to be most efficient and most effective within their role.
I love that. He's not wrong about that though.
No, I was like, no, take it. Yeah, think about it. How many people use ChatGPT or all these AI instances like the game? And if you're able to master the functionality and the use case, how much more effective can you be in your job?
1,000%. And that, right? And you make me think of people saying that, hey, I'm so busy, I can't cover these things. I'm busy, I'm busy. A lot of times too, that's like the old badge of honor. I'm busy. Like
Yeah,
you should be able to leave at 5 o'clock and be done with
yeah,
your job because you're so efficient. You get
that's
things
it.
done, you focus, you're productive.
Yeah.
You don't have to work 5 million hours.
5 million hours, or your calendar looks like a post-it note board. Every hour of the day is filled with something.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that is a great point.
Yeah.
And you spoke about something before too, which I think is absolutely critical for leaders. You spoke about like a lifelong learner, and I do think there's a lot of people that are realizing there's so much information out there. I'm a big believer continuous learn. I am a personal development, professional development junkie. I take classes all the time. I spend tens of thousands of dollars and people think I'm nuts. But to me, it's a journey and it's not a destination. So what are things that you do? What do you try to encourage your team to do to just keep on that path of growth as
That's it.
things change so fast?
Be a lifelong learner. It was interesting. Here's another thing that somebody told me early in my career. They told me that the moment you stop learning is the moment you start to die within your career. And so like you have always got to stay at that cusp of wanting to learn and learning, and being in those circles, just like you. I spend many countless hours and dollars on learning stuff that might not be solely tied to retail security, retail risks, or things like that. But I just want to learn. I want to learn, what's new. How are people leading their teams? How are people being most effective? What are some of the tools that are happening on the finance world? Like things that might not be completely within my remit, but is somewhere close by, because just having that general knowledge is something that I can pull from somewhere and use it somewhere down the road. And so I love learning. It's a space that for anybody that's worked on my team, they know that I value those individuals that want to learn. I value giving them the opportunities to learn. I will find ways to fund programs, from the company, from our organization, to be able to get them into those circles so they can learn. Because when you have team members that are curious individuals will drive so much impact for you down the road because they stay curious at every level, whether it's about the business, learning something else about the business, or doing something that's going to drive the effectiveness of what you have to get done. If you have a curious learner on your team, like you can accomplish and overcome almost any challenge that's put in front of you.
Yeah, that's a great, I mean, that is honestly a great trait for people and leaders to look out for, right? The
Yeah.
person that is eager to learn and wants to figure, they say like, right, that just the ability to figure it out. That's like,
Yeah.
whew, I want that on your resume. I can
That's
always
what,
figure it out.
yes.
And that's powerful. And is there a go-to, like, do you like podcasts, or trainings, a mix of everything?
I do a mix of everything. So
Okay.
I love podcasts. Those are quick. That's
Yeah.
like in the airport, like it's very rare. Every so often you might catch me on a flight somewhere listening to music, but most of the time I'm listening to something learning and development wise along the journey. That's something you can listen to in the car. And then of course, if I can get in front of something, if I can get in a training, in front of the training,
Right.
connected with a coach, somebody like you that has seen other, because, as you're coaching, like everything that all those places you're spending tens of thousands of dollars to, you're bringing it back to the people that you coach. and so like getting in front of a coach like you to be able to pull from that, and to glean on different learning cycles or different learning sessions, like those are all key things that I use in my toolkit, to keep me sharp out there.
That was actually one of the reasons I started the podcast was because I'm like, what other opportunity do I have to like learn from somebody for an hour? I mean,
Yeah.
that's like a no-brainer. It's
Like,
selfishly, and then I can share that with everybody else
yes.
unselfishly.
Yes.
Right? 27, 30 years of your experience to share like how are you doing it? I think is
Doing it.
super powerful. And when stress is something with, I feel like with the holidays now, right? Just
Yeah.
everything right now, it's just like getting more and more stressful for people. Lots of layoffs, all the things.
Yeah.
What are your like go-to things? Is it health? Is it fitness? Is it mindset? For what do you do to keep less stressed and more engaged and happy?
Yeah. Well, it is. It is mindset. It is health and fitness. But most importantly, it's family.
Mm.
I tell everybody, especially if working on my teams, you'll know that I'm a big family person. Most people don't know this. I don't think you know this. I have 5 daughters. Five
No,
daughters.
you don't.
5 daughters. Yes. Yes.
Amazing.
So, yes. So that comes with a lot of stress at
Oh
home
my
too.
gosh. How old are they, by the
But
way?
we started, the youngest is 2, which you might have heard her crying a couple minutes ago,
I
but
did.
the
That's
youngest is
okay.
2. Yeah. Youngest is 2 and the oldest is 23. So
No
we go from
way.
5 to 23. But the most interesting thing is that,
Wow.
your family, your significant other, your children, like those are the individuals that keep you grounded. They
Mhm.
give you purpose, and they
Yeah.
give you the reason to work so hard when you're working during the daytime, to work so hard because you're able to come back and you're able to enjoy them, you're able to spend time with them, and you're also able to pour into them because of the proceeds that you're getting from your 9 to 5, your secular work. And so when you have that family and you have those moments, you got to be present. in those moments. And that requires you to be able to disconnect from work, to be
Yep.
present in those moments, because those are the individuals that keep you grounded and sound to be able to perform at the most highest levels of efficiency when you are working. And
Yep.
so that's something that's near and dear to me, is keeping my family top of mind, keeping them very paramount in everything that I do, every decision that I'm making professionally. I look back to make sure that it's a right thing for my family. It's my spouse is keyed in and tied to those decisions that are made, because they're the ones that keep Khris Hamlin when the camera goes off, or when the phone is turned off. It's the family that's keeping me going. So
Oh my gosh. I love that you said that because, right, family, the time spent. And I think a lot of people, they struggle with, I'm working so hard, I'm working 80 hours a week, whatever it is, it's so much, and I don't have time with my family. And then they're so overworked. And, I talk a lot about like the brain, the dopamine hit of constantly,
mhm.
and it travels home. And then
Yeah,
they're present with, it's like, oh, okay, honey, like I'm on my phone, right?
yeah.
And so do you have any like tools that you use personally to just disconnect completely? Like, have you caught yourself?
Yeah, I catch myself all the time,
Yeah.
because it's hard, especially when you become like that atypical leader where you're like, I got everything, I got to have a finger on the pulse, and I got to know what's happening. But there's those moments where you set aside, whether it's significant other daytime with significant other to recharge. That's where phones are away. That's where this is downtime from technology. This is physical connection with your spouse, and in those moments, or when it's time for you to go on vacation. Like this is times where you have to be comfortable telling your team, I'm not going to be available. I'm going to have limited to no email communication during this time, because I'm at Disneyland, or I'm off at the beach with the family. And that is so important for your kids as they're growing up, to be able to say that dad works really, really hard, but when he's with us, he showed up for soccer, he showed up for this, he showed up for that. That's something. It wasn't easy. I learned the hard way,
Yeah.
and something that I vow to do going forward, after learning some lifelong lessons that hurt me at the beginning of my kid's life, to now that's it, that I will absolutely stand by this. My 2-year-old will never have to share me with work. She will see me show up as full as I can be at those moments. So
That's one. No, that's really
yeah,
wonderful, right? And I thank you for saying that it's, it is challenging. And some people look at
yeah,
someone like you and say, "Oh, you perfected it," or they say, "Roddy, you talk about this all the time." I just taught my class this morning, and I was like, guys, I caught myself. I was doing the crazy scroll for like an hour. I never do that, and I was like,
yeah,
"What am I doing? Who am I?"
yeah,
Right? But being really, really present, and even for myself, my parents, my parents are I'm so grateful. They're so super healthy, 82 and 76. They came over
yeah,
yesterday. I don't touch my phone when they're here. Like,
yeah,
it's
yeah.
like that is that's what you're working so hard
That's
for.
it. That's it. Dinner
And
time without the phone. Disconnect from it.
yes,
It will be there. I promise you. Those emails are not going anywhere. They
they
they they will be
will
there.
always.
They will
They,
always be there. Yeah. That crisis will be there too. Yeah.
you're reminding me. I'm like, yeah, when you're on vacation, it's just socks and underwear.
That's it. Socks and underwear.
But
That's
that I
it.
think is really that's powerful because that's something when I'm coaching people. Again, it's same thing. It's like values run. I feel like burnout happens and
Yeah.
stress,
Yeah.
especially when you're not running the filter of everything you do has to be through your
Yeah.
values. And clearly family is another one of your values, right? And
Yeah.
so
Yeah.
if you're running it through that filter, you're gonna make the right decision. You're not gonna feel as burned out.
That's it. That's it.
Right?
And it's so interesting because, like, that person that tells you, I have so many meetings, I don't have time to do, they're burnt out. They just don't know it. But the match is burnt out. They are
Yes.
burnt out, and
Yes.
it's not until you sit down and really reflect and say, like, wow, like, at that burnout stage, how effective are you as a leader? What are you doing to your team? Because if you're burnt out, that means that the people that are closely connected to you, you're burning them out, and you're burning family out, and you're burnt, and the burnout just continues to spread like a wildfire. And so it's like identifying what stress and burnout, where does that intersect at, and then how do you stop and
Yes.
say, I got to pause for a moment because I'm going down that wrong path, and it's not easy. It's not easy. Like I'll be very transparent and very, very open here. Like, this is my second marriage.
Okay.
My first marriage ended because I allowed myself to focus so wholeheartedly into my career, I
Yeah.
burnt out everybody,
Yeah.
including home. And it wasn't until me having that self-reflective moment to say, I'm not going down that road again. And if there was an opportunity for me to get remarried, which thankful there was somebody that had passion or had compassion for this young guy here. Uh, when having that moment to be able to say, I will never go down that road to where I get to that point of burnout, then I burn everybody else out around me. That's a reflective moment. So,
Oh wow, that's powerful. Number one, Chris, thank you for sharing that and being so
yeah,
transparent because I'm sure there's so many people that will listen and say, "Oh my gosh, I am there or I've been there."
yeah,
And it usually does, right? Just like we talked about being having like poor managers in the past, we learned sometimes
yeah,
the hard way, right? From
yeah.
that, and how often your level of self-awareness. I think that's the most important, right? If you can find ways to be aware, because if you're not self-aware, you don't realize your spouse and your family are like ignoring you. Maybe you think
Yeah,
it's quiet, but
it's intentional. Yeah.
we can't handle it anymore or picking fights with you because
Yeah.
you're not paying attention to them, right? And it
Yeah.
all comes from a different place. We all want to feel respected and cared for and all of the things. That's really powerful. Thank you for sharing that because I hope
Yeah.
that is something for me. I'd love for to see more leaders just putting family first. That
Yes. Yeah.
is didn't you feel like the time flew faster when you weren't there and present and now
Oh,
it goes a little
absolutely.
slower? A little slower.
Yes. At least I get to sit back and say, wow, we learned a new word today for the
Yeah.
2 year old. Or I sit back and say, wow, this is your career goals. This is what you want to do for my older kids. And so it is taking those moments to really kind of invest because remember, home is what keeps you as that leader
Yeah.
that the world sees.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, you're leading at home
Yeah.
too.
Yep.
Your family needs your leadership, right?
That's it.
100%.
That's
I
it.
love that. And you were just mentioning as we're kind of like a bit wrapping up, and I'm gonna ask for some
Yeah.
some, some input from you.
Yeah.
We talked about the next generation. I think that was before even we hit record. But what the next generation in just whether it's retail, it's loss prevention, like what do you see as some challenges and what advice would you give? Because I do feel like a lot of people stay in this industry a long time, and so you can get a little jaded.
Yeah.
What's your go-to strategy for that?
My big thing that the advice I'll give to leaders that are out there, especially if you've been in here for a long time or you are now working your way through the hierarchy of leadership, it is, we are in a place now where the future it's unknown. It's so ambiguous right now. Like every day comes with a new challenge. Whether it's tariffs or it's SNAP benefits or it's government shutdowns or it's civil unrest, we have no idea what next hurdle we're going to be faced with, but we do know our core values. We know what we have to do. We know that we protect people, we protect product. We know where our focuses have to be. We know where our programs have to be able to get the job done. And so as I've spoken and shared with many, many people, don't allow the chaos of what's happening in the world today to pitch you into that place of being overly stressed or burnt out. Go back to your core values. Go back to the core of what you do and what you were called to do. Whether if you're leading things from a sales perspective in retail, you know that you have to drive margin and you've got to be able to deliver on sales plans and got to be able to build that customer experience and deliver on that customer experience to keep her shopping in your stores. And if you're protecting retail, you know that you got to drive programs together that are going to minimize loss, protect people's safety, and be able to insulate the product so that the good consumer can come in and buy it. And
Yeah.
so go back to your core values. Don't get jaded by what the next headline is in the media, because it's so easy to go off that path and to allow those to influence the decisions that you're going to make as a leader. Don't do that. Stay core to what you got called to the industry to do.
Oh my gosh. And you remind me another thing I love to talk about is being, knowing whether you're in cause or being the effect. And I think, like you said,
Yeah.
watching the headlines, right, can
Yes.
can easily put us into the victim, like and not in a bad way. I think we're human beings, right? It's easy for us. We were going protective mode. We literally, right,
Yeah.
protective
Yeah.
mode. It's like, what is all this? What are all these challenges? Fight them off. I was gonna actually ask you, like, are there things that you do to protect yourself from, like, for me, it's TV. I just don't have it. I don't have
Yeah.
it on.
Look, I I watch TV, but I try to stay away from the mainstream news. Like
Yeah.
there's so much that happens in the news.
Yeah.
There's so much, even with social media. So of course I'm on social media. Everybody has their Facebook and Instagram and Twitter,
Yeah.
all that. Oh, it's not, it's X now, all that stuff.
Okay.
But I'll tell you, like I keep away from reacting to what the headlines are.
Mm,
It's so interesting. A couple weeks ago, well, right before as October was coming around,
yeah.
around Halloween time, everybody was worried about what government assistance were going to get cut off and what's
Yes.
happening with it, and so there was so much fake news happening on social media. I mean, there were people showing, people robbing stores and causing protests. It was all AI generated,
That
and
crazy. Oh my God.
there were companies that decided to board up their stores because what they saw in the fake news they thought was legitimately going to happen. And so what happened? They boarded their stores, and then
Oh,
they became the targets of the real media that said, "Look at how these people overreact." And I said, in my mind, I went back and said, "Oh my God, this is exactly why you don't allow that unfiltered content to persuade your decisions and your thoughts." And that's where you have to be able to separate. You have to be able to say, all right, is this entertainment, or am I looking at this that's going to persuade my decisions I'm going to make as a leader? And so you have to
wow.
have that level of separation.
Wow.
Yeah.
All right. That's what, especially with AI now. I mean, it is like, I mean, even for some of my training decks, I'm
Yeah.
like, get a picture of, I'm like, that, I showed my mother yesterday. She goes, that's not a real person? It looks like a real person. I was like, it is. I don't know what her name is, but she's not real.
It's not real. It's close. Yeah. Yeah.
That is wild. Yeah. So like that, I like that. That's protecting, being proactive about not
That's
being
it.
like reactive to what's
It's
out.
like have that moment where this is entertainment. We're going to laugh, we're going to chuckle, but this is not going to filter over into business. Yeah.
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 Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
And I do know people are like it's again, it's habits, a lot of habits that need to be
Yeah.
broken, but like having that on in the background, that noise, you just don't know what's being said that you're subconsciously taking in. And my word, I want to protect my brain
That's
from
it.
that
Protect it.
stuff.
Yeah. Yeah. Don't make
That's
those decisions. That's going to
uh,
hurt.
oh my gosh. But
Yeah.
being calm, being stoic through all of it and not, yeah, that's great. That's wonderful. That's really, really important as a leader. Anything else that you would just want, like, as we wrap up, like
Yeah.
suggestions to your fellow colleagues and other leaders? What would you do? Just,
Yeah. I think, I'll just put back out there. It's okay to say that you're not okay. Take
mm,
that moment. Like I am a wholeheart supporter of that, of reaching out to somebody and asking for help. Whether it's a colleague in the industry, asking them for help on navigating challenges that you're faced with in your business, or seeking somebody for professional help, whether it be therapy. I have a therapist. I see a
yeah,
therapist.
yeah,
I'm transparent. That's what I do because it keeps me healthy. It keeps me grounded. It keeps me focused.
yeah,
And so like it's okay for that. That's like it's 2025, that these things are okay for a leader to have, because these are things that equip you in your toolkit. Keep going back to my toolkit. I have a tool chest of different things that keep me Khris Hamlin and keep me thriving as Khris Hamlin. And so it's okay to do that. The other thing too is really be there, show up for your team. Like
mm,
your team they will work harder for you. They will deliver more organically for you when you show up authentically for your team. And so when you show up authentically for them, they will deliver for you. Like I said, I have members that have been on my team that might not be on my team today, but we are solely connected. Like we check in on our career plans with each other and how we're growing in the retail industry. Retail industry is so small. Like there's probably not one asset protection leader in the industry in the U.S. that I don't know,
that's
and
one.
and it's almost wild to say even abroad. I probably know, I know many of them internationally as well, and so like that community is small, and so it's all about like how do you show up for them, how do you deliver for them. My team member that I showed up for today might be your team member at another company tomorrow, and so it's all about how do you keep grounded and show up for the team, because what you do for a person is going to change how the industry goes. And so like that's another key point there too. And then stay a curious and a lifetime learner. That's something that is near and dear to me. I'm always going to be curious, and I'm a lifetime learner. I will pull up as a student to anybody's academy so that I can learn.
So great, Chris. And
Yeah,
now I can see after just, I don't know, it's like you see when you meet somebody, at least for me, I'm like, oh, sometimes kindred spirits, you just feel there's so many
yeah,
similarities. And I so appreciate your authenticity. I wasn't planning on even going in that way. And authentic leadership is something that's near and dear to my heart. I feel like we sometimes feel we have to be so buttoned up and polished, and we're human beings. Sometimes we break, and it's
yeah.
okay to share that so other people know and they learn from it. That's been probably one of my favorite things to share on social media is like, here are all my mistakes.
Look at it.
Or
Learn from it. Learn from it. Learn. Don't do this.
if I can save you a couple years
Yeah.
of agony, here's what not to
Here's
do.
what. Yeah.
That's wonderful. You're such an awesome leader and just a light. And I so appreciate your enthusiasm and sharing these. I'm going to be putting out like some clips first before it gets launched, but I so appreciate you